I think there are women involved in the music scene, and there have been for years, but they just get erased. So that's the other thing. It's not just the fact that we were there. It's the fact that, like, later on, when you're reading the books that were written by musicologists who had just happened to be white males, that they just write about white males. It's like, wait, there were other people there.
Welcome to The Creative Asylum, a weekly podcast that digs deep into the minds of visionary creators of all stripes. Musicians, actors, filmmakers, writers, artists, cartoonists, and cultural disruptors. Here, we'll discuss perspectives of living life on your own terms. Life lessons that keep us grounded, insane, and sometimes pull us back from the edge. So, take a deep breath, loosen your grip on the bland and the boring. This is your weekly prescription for authentic living, creative clarity, and hopefully, a little bit of cultural rebellion.
Side effects may include spontaneous joy, existential epiphanies, and an uncontrollable urge to do weird and beautiful things.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming to the Creative Asylum. I'm Daniel House, and today's guest is Alice Bagg. If you don't know her, she was an important figure in the first wave of the LA punk scene back in the 70s with her band, The Baggs. If you've seen the movie, The Decline of Western Civilization, she is one of the bands featured in that film. She has a memoir called Violence Girl, which is highly recommended if you're interested in finding out about what it was like in the early days of the LA punk scene. The Baggs split up in the early 80s, but she has continued to be a force in music. She's put out several solo records. As I mentioned, she has her memoir. But she's also been a really strong figure both in Chicana Latina culture in LA, as well as being something of a feminist icon. And we're really lucky to have her here today on the podcast. We talk about a lot of this stuff, have some different takes on Decline of Western Civilization. I'm going to defer to her since she was there and I was not. And then we'd also talk a lot about her more recent project, which is called Juanita and Juan, a project that she does with another LA legend, Kid Congo Powers. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. I think it's great. Let's jump over to Alice Bagg. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning, Daniel.
Thank you for coming on the Creative Asylum. I very, very much appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I don't think you remember, we met once. You were doing some speaking event at Occidental College when I still lived in Eagle Rock, actually. But I was a fan already of you musically, and
Thank you.
it was really it was a really cool talk. And I've been kind of following you for a while. I know a while back you went down to Mexico City, but now you're living back in LA. Is that right?
Yes. As soon as vaccinations became available after the pandemic, we just decided we were going to sell all our belongings, rent the house that we were paying for, and but not sell it, and move to Mexico City and retire. And we began that process, but then we realized that we still have children here. They're grown children, but
Right.
they still want us around, and
Well, they could move to Mexico City.
that's what I said.
There are
But
worse things.
yeah, but they've got their lives here. They just want us around when they want us, and most of the time they don't need us. But it's nice to know mom and dad are around.
It's the safety of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
How old are the kids?
Oh, they're old. They're
Well, they can't be that old. We're old.
early to mid 30s. I mean, old
Okay.
enough to not really need us, but I
Sure.
guess young enough to still want us to.
Well, I guess there's the comfort of family, something like that.
I think I'm just lucky that somebody wants me. So
When you say we, does that mean you're with their father?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I assume he wants you too.
Yes, he does, but he doesn't need me back in Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, he is eager to move back to Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And we're planning a trip to Mexico right now, and we actually extended it a little bit longer, and we're always we have all kinds of pipe dreams about
Sure.
traveling in retirement and moving to different places and living in places for maybe 6 months at a time and then coming back to LA.
How long were you down in Mexico City for?
Well, off and on for about 3 years. We actually were there like 2 years solid, and then we went back to Arizona for a little bit, and then went back to Mexico, and then finally decided, okay, we just have to be back in California.
Taking the kids out of the equation, if you just could go anywhere, would you prefer Mexico City, or do you like LA, or is it sort of that's too black and white of a
I
thing to
think,
ask?
I feel like I have friends and family both places. I love
Hmm.
the lifestyle in Mexico City. Of course, it's a retired lifestyle, so it meant
Right,
neither of us had to plan anything in any day. We just wake up and decide, what do you want to do today?
right,
And
right.
that is a really nice feeling that I don't have here. Everything when I'm here, everything is on a schedule, and that is my own probably just. It's a habit that I started a long time ago because I
Hmm.
get very distracted. So I make schedules for myself, and they're like every single day is divided into 15-minute increments. And it also comes from teaching young kids where you plan lessons and, like, oh, this child's attention is probably about 15, maybe 20 minutes if you're working with an older child. So you plan in 15 to 20-minute increments.
So now you do that in your own life.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, part of that is just because you're somebody who, I assume has like spent most of your life just doing stuff, whatever the stuff is. I mean, you've been creatively active since what? You were like in high school or even before, right?
I am a doer. Yeah, I do. I think it was about high school when I started like forming a band.
That's when the bags or the pre-bags started in high school.
No, I was already out of high school. I actually
Okay.
I graduated in what year was it? I was 17. I was
Okay.
17 when I was in the bags, and I
Uh-huh.
had just graduated high school.
Okay. Okay.
76.
Right. So
Sorry, I'm at the age where I forget things, but then it comes back.
well, you and me are only a few years apart, so I understand all that squishy brain stuff. So in preparation for this, I last night rewatched The Decline of Western Civilization for probably the 10th or dozenth time. It's such a good movie. And for me and probably for many people, it was their first exposure to either both punk or just a lot of the bands in that movie. I watched it in the Del Amo Mall down in Torrance in 1981 when it first came out. I was staying with my grandparents for a 9-month period, saving money before I moved up to Seattle, where I lived for 22 years. So I saw it in July, and I think like within a week or two, I was on my way to Seattle. But that movie was so seminal to me and really just changed my life. I remember seeing it, and I remember being sort of on the one hand fascinated, on the other hand kind of terrified because I was 19 and I knew about punk, but I wasn't really into punk music yet. Like I was more into sort of the new wave stuff, like I was right around the time that Freedom of Choice came out by Devo. So I was really into
Yeah.
that. And, like the B-52s and Talking Heads.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'd read about this movie and about what was going on up north in LA with punk rock. And so I was, really interested. And I saw that movie and I was just like, it just the top of my head exploded. And, I was at a time in my life when musical exploration was so critical, although it still is. But yeah, that was my first exposure. And I rewatch that movie every 3-4 years. And so watching it again last night was just great. And going all the way back to that early time in your life and being part of that film, what was that like for you?
Well, I have to say that I don't really share your view of that movie.
Uh-huh.
I actually walked out of the premiere.
Really?
Um, I was very unhappy with it when it first came out, and I
Okay.
don't think I realized the impact it would have on people and its true
Hmm.
importance until like many years later. What I saw on stage was like a very dark scene, which was not what I remembered
Sure.
Not what I had experienced. The early punk scene was very colorful and very embracing of weirdos, and also, even though there was a dark side to it, definitely it was also a lot of it was just wackiness and humor and people having a lot of fun.
Right.
So I was very unhappy with the film. Also, by the time that that movie came out, like my band had broken up.
Uh-huh.
I saw like the remains of my band, and it made me sad. So I couldn't stand it. So I walked out, and it wasn't until years later when I started talking to people and they said I was living in the Midwest, or I was living, in some secluded corner of the world where this movie played, and changed their trajectory completely.
Right.
So
Right.
I realized that what Penelope did when she made that film was she really just opened up the possibilities to a lot of people who didn't have access to that type of thing.
Hearing your perspective, it makes sense to me. Obviously, you were in it, and I was from the outside. But my experience has been that most underground creative movements are typically very familial and very creative and ultimately very colorful.
Yeah.
Um, I remember during that time reading a lot about the punk scene in LA and how, quote unquote, violent it was. Was she sort of being opportunistic in terms of showing just that side of it?
I think
I mean, was she from that world, or was she kind of an outsider looking in?
I think she was connected to Bob Biggs, who was
Hmm.
part of Slash.
Yep.
So there was the Slash connection to it. And I think that kind of guided the movie in a way. But this is my assumption. Just from viewing it, I feel like there was a lot of Germs and X who are
Hmm.
obviously on Slash. And
Right.
and I feel that there were also like musical groups that were really important to the LA punk scene,
That were not
like
part of the movie.
that were not included, like the Screamers and the Weirdos are the first people I think of. I would have liked to have seen the Zeros. I would have liked to have seen the Control, like other bands, just lots of other bands that were there at the very beginning. They were
Or like
like,
the Plugs, bands like that
yeah,
were.
true
Yeah.
pioneers that had been there from the beginning and didn't really get the attention in that film. But
Right.
then, I don't want to criticize, because it's also like it was a woman directing this film. She was at concerts. I did see her, she was part of the scene. She wasn't there from the very beginning, as far as like she wasn't at the concerts that I went to. She wasn't hanging out at the Canterbury, and so she didn't live it in the same way
Right.
that many of the other members of the community did. However, I feel like she just took it upon herself to make this film. She did it her way, and I'm happy for her.
Mhm.
I'm proud that she made the film. It isn't the film I would have made, but I'm glad that somebody did it, and she leads by example. If somebody doesn't like that, they can go ahead and make their own film. And I think
That's true.
people are doing that, right? People,
Yeah.
like, I feel like there's more opportunity now for people to make their own documentaries and even critique. Like, even the fact that you and I could just have our home studios and
Uh-huh,
have this
uh-huh.
conversation and share it with other people means that, like, we're no longer bound by, like, oh, is a big studio going to finance my film and back my point of view?
I mean,
So
the barrier for entry is much easier these days.
yeah, it's really non-existent, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Which is kind of a blessing and a curse, I think, both in a way. Because now that the floodgates are open, it also means you have to slog through a lot more stuff just to kind of find the stuff that you might be interested in,
I
if that
don't
makes
know,
sense.
man. I'm like, I'm a graduate. I got a PhD in YouTube at YouTube University.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, if it weren't for YouTube, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast because there are so many channels of just information and how to do it and tips and tricks. And, after a while, you're inundated with just too much stuff. It's like, okay, all you
Yeah,
experts, you're all
yeah.
wrong.
I know, and that can also lead to problems. Like like for the holidays, I looked up, I don't know, maybe 20 vegan tamal recipes, and of
Uh-huh.
course, my vegan tamales were weak sauce because
Uh-huh.
I just decided I'm going to take this from this recipe and that from the other
Right.
recipe, and of course, they were edible. That's all I can
They're
say.
edible. Are you vegan?
My family is vegan. I'm
Uh-huh.
vegetarian, so
Okay.
sometimes I eat dairy, sometimes I have eggs and
Right.
cheese,
Yeah.
but I try to go with the flow and
Hmm.
just be vegan most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the time it's easy. There's certain things I'd have a hard time giving up. I mean, my wife is vegetarian
Yeah,
and I'm not, but I'm vegetarian probably 85 to 90% of the time because it's easy.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is that it's like I'm the principal cook in my family, so I like to
Hmm.
cook
Right.
one meal. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I like to cook one dinner meal. I don't like to have to make 2 dishes or 3 dishes.
Right.
So, like,
Right.
sometimes if I'm on tour and my only option is a vegetarian meal, then I will have vegetarian meal happily.
Hmm. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more, just sticking on the topic of the decline.
Um,
Because you're saying by the time the movie came out, your band had broken up, so it was a point of sadness, which I completely understand. But I guess what I want to ask you about is that version of the band in the movie is sort of the final version of the Bags in a sense,
yeah.
and I was as I guess my question is, at that point in time, what was your relationship with Patricia? Um,
My relationship with Patricia was terrible. We
was
had
it?
a big falling out where she thought that we had kicked her out of the band. We thought
Hmm.
she had quit. We had had an argument and we didn't address it. We had actually planned to have a meeting behind her back. And she found out about the meeting and she called in and said,
Oh.
"Well, you don't have to kick me out because I quit." But then she was like, "They kicked me out." And I'm like, "Well, whatever she says, that's what happened." I just didn't want to
Right.
get into it. But I was really angry too, and not to get into it because I feel like we spent 30 years, Patricia and I, not speaking to each other. 30
Wow.
years. And we had been best friends. And I feel
Uh-huh.
like now I feel like whatever it was so stupid and unimportant that I don't ever want this like I saw it this way, you saw it a different way to get in the way of our friendship. So I'm willing to go with whatever she says happened. That's what happened. Um,
We don't
I
have that wisdom in our teens and our 20s, right?
we do not have that wisdom,
You
and
know?
I was just really mad at her, and, I think I was young, and I felt a lot of the, expectations of the band that we get signed and get a record deal or something, and they were on me, and I always was the fuck up. I have to admit, I was drinking a lot, I was taking drugs, I was singing off key and just going crazy on stage and being more about like just creating chaos than anything else. Which, now that I go look back on it, it's like, well, that had value too.
It totally did. Yeah, I think so.
but but it doesn't have any value to like if you have a record company person in the audience, they don't want to bottle that up and sell it.
I don't know. Isn't that on some level kind of what punk rock is about? Is just not giving a shit about what you're supposed to do and just doing whatever feels like you want to do in the moment?
In that case, I win. So
There you go. There you go. Um, and that was the springboard for you musically, right? For a lot of things that you've done since then and continue to do today.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I feel like it's opened up a lot of doors for me. Like,
Uh-huh.
even writing a book, I had to, like, go back and and be okay with people wanting to talk about the decline or to talk about Darby Crash. Like, all the things that I thought, "Oh, those things are in my past. Let's talk about what I'm doing now," but it wasn't. It was
Well, especially if you're writing a book about your past, right? I
yeah.
mean,
Well, it's not yeah, I guess it is, yeah.
so I was part of the whole Seattle grunge scene, and so
Mhm.
people always want to talk to me about the grunge scene, right? And they're like, "What was it like?" And I'm like, "I was in a city playing in a band with a bunch of my friends, and we were all playing in bands."
Yeah.
What was it like? That's what it was like. Like it was, when you're in the middle of something that later becomes an important part of history, typically in that moment, you don't know what that relevance is going to be and what it's going to become and how important uh, the things that you were doing become in retrospect, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, people do want to talk to you about that because the things that you did and the things that you were part of have been immensely influential in people's lives in really meaningful ways, you know?
Well, I mean, I understand that now, but I have
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
there was a time, I don't know if this happened to you, but there was a time in my life, like, 10 years after I'd been out of the bags where people would show up at, concert that I'm doing with an acoustic group and yell "Survive," which is a bag song. And I'm like, I'm not going to
Right.
play Survive. This isn't that band.
Right.
I'm moving forward.
It's like Freebird. No. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you ask me what really happened with Darby Crash. It's like, I don't know what really happened. I have
Uh-huh.
I have my own relationship with this person, and I've already shared it with you in the book. I don't have
Right.
inside knowledge into his head. I don't know if that happened to you, where like you almost felt like the past was following you, and not in a good way, in a way
Hmm.
that kind of like put you in a box. Like I don't mind like,
Sure.
saying, yes, I have a history. I'm happy with what I did. I'm proud of like having been part of this great movement, this awesome scene, very privileged
Uh-huh.
to have been part of it. But I'm also doing other things now.
Sure. Well, above and beyond just being part of that seminal first wave of LA punk rock, I think you're also part of sort of a different layer of that. I don't know if you like the word Chicana or
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but that's a whole important part of the music scene that's really much more specific to Southern California, I
yeah,
think. And LA has offered so much in terms of that in terms of, relevancy, not just in punk rock, but there's no Chicano punk scene in LA or in Seattle, right? But
yeah,
in LA, it's a really critical part of the entire culture and the fabric of Southern California.
yeah, absolutely.
I know, and also just I think the whole feminist component. I used to have a record label, and I put out. I put out the first two records by 7 Year Bitch. I don't know if you remember those guys or not,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
but in a musical landscape that has historically been pretty much dominated by men, to me, it's always really fantastic when there are powerful women also kind of going, move aside. I got something to say myself, and really kind of staking a claim in that space, you know?
yeah, and also like demanding to be like written into history, because I think there are women involved in the music scene and there have been for years, but they just get erased. So that's the other thing. It's not just the fact that we were there, it's the fact that like later on when you're reading the books that were written by musicologists who had just happened to be white males, that they just write about white males. It's like, wait, there were other people there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think LA is a great example of that, the richness and the mix of men and women and whites and non-whites and just, all of it. Maybe LA stands out more than a lot of cities in America and rock scenes in that way. Still seems like there's always that thing where it's like
What?
one of the first interviews I did on this show was with Lori Barbera from Babes in Toyland,
Mhm.
you know. And there's always that thing of like she's a girl drummer.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you could just say she's a drummer, you know? Or, so often it's all male groups or all women groups, and sometimes I wonder why, and sometimes it makes sense to me, sometimes I think women like 7 Year Bitch is an example of like, "No, fuck that. We're gonna start an all-woman group because for exactly that reason." And then sometimes it's just a mix of men and women, and it sort of doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of people getting together and making music,
It's interesting too that like when women form an all women band, that
right?
it's a thing, it's a statement. But
As
when
opposed to an
guys
all-male band.
and when there's an all male
Yeah.
band, now I think of it, it's also a statement. Like you don't
Uh-huh.
know any women, you don't like there's no women
Right.
musicians in your neighborhood or like You
Right.
like, so so that is also a statement that people don't point out. It is like, if you don't have diversity in your band, or, like, like, why not? Like, do
Right.
you live, I mean, I suppose there are places where, like, maybe if you're in a jail or something and it's all white men in your cell block or something, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's as much of a thing now, but certainly 30 years, 40 years ago, women playing music, period, was more of an anomaly than it is now. But it still seems to be this thing that people point out.
yeah,
I think it'd be funny if all male bands started getting pointed out as like, oh yeah, they're an all male band,
I do
as if
that.
as if there's something different, right?
I always ask you, like, if I'm playing a show, it's like, like, and somebody wants to open or something, I'm
Hmm.
like, who's in the band? What's in the band? Like, what are the
Yeah.
members of the band, and what do they sing about? Or what are their songs about? Like, I want to know who I'm playing with. So I try and be
Ah,
proactive and be diverse, be inclusive.
if you don't like what they represent, say lyrically, you'd be like, I don't know if I want to play with them.
I would say I won't play with them. I would,
Mhm.
like, I will not play with somebody who has, like, views that I find offensive.
Right.
Whether they're, like, homophobic or misogynist.
You won't play with the Trumpies.
I won't play with the Trumpies, no.
Actually, it might
I
be fun
won't
to
give
have a
them.
bit.
I won't, they can play, but they're not on my show. No, I don't.
Maybe there should be a band called the Trumpies, and they're like a total queercore band, and they write about everything that is completely anti-Trump. That might be kind of fun.
I don't know.
Just a
I
thought.
don't know.
I was working in the band one time, and I was putting on a show, and I'm not going to name the band because they might listen and go, dude, why'd you call us out? But I was setting up the show, and they were going to be on a bill with a band called Naked Aggression.
Oh, yeah, I remember Naked Aggression. Yeah.
And the main guy in the band who was going to be headlining got really incensed
Why?
because he didn't like the name, because he thought somehow it represented something or meant something or was inherently sexist.
Oh,
And then I pointed out that the band was like two men and two women. And he's like, oh, well, that's different. I'm like, well, maybe you should do your homework first before you jump to a conclusion. You're just basing it on the actual name of a band, knowing nothing about the actual band itself, right?
well, glad you clarified that. But I do respect the fact that they didn't want to get involved with something that they thought could be, like, rapey. I don't want to be involved in anything that sounds
Well, sure.
rapey. So, like,
Yeah, yeah.
explain it to me, please.
Yes, right. Well, he didn't want the explanation came later.
Yeah.
He kind of reacted, and then I had to kind of pull him back, go, "Dude, hold on. I think you'd like these guys. I really do."
Good for you. Good.
And it worked out. It worked out fine. It worked out fine. If you're enjoying this conversation, please make sure you hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. It's the quickest way to grow our channel, and it's absolutely free. You can also subscribe to our other channels on social media. Check out our Instagram at Creative Asylum CA, that's the letter CA, or on TikTok at The Creative Asylum, that's all one word. Our website is thecapod.com, and our Facebook profile is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. All right, back to the episode. So, I don't know if you're still doing this, but the whole Juan and Juanita thing,
We are doing
is
it,
that still
actually.
active?
Yeah, we're still doing it. I'm like, we are taking a little break right now. I'm going
Uh-huh.
to, Kid is working with a friend that he has out in Tucson. They did a record together. I can't, I don't remember the name of the record right now, but
Uh-huh.
he is working on another project. I am going to be doing some shows with Alice Bagman, my regular band. And Kid and I are going to write some songs for Juan and Juanita. And we're actually, like, he just texted me and said, like, when do you want to get together? I have to go out to Tucson and write some more material. And that's exciting.
Is he based in
He's
Tucson?
in Tucson. He's in
Okay.
Tucson, yeah.
Okay. And how did that whole project like come together?
It came together because we're both on In the Red,
Uh-huh.
and Larry Hardy, who runs In the Red, wrote to us.
I've
He
actually
sent.
talked to Larry about doing an interview for this.
Oh, that'd be great. He's a
Yeah.
great guy.
Yeah,
He
I
wrote
think so
he
too.
wrote an email to us, and he copied us both, saying that this TV station was looking for somebody to write a song for a new show. It was called The Resort, and we didn't know anything about it, but we knew that they were interested in either having me or Kid write a song. And of course, Kim and I were both interested in doing it, but we were very cordial and I'm like, well, if they asked for Kid, he should do it. That he should have first choice. And Kid said, like, oh no, like Alice should do it. And she speaks Spanish, and if
Uh-huh.
they're looking for someone, because it was supposed to be on a Mexican resort, and they're like, if they're looking for a Spanish language song, she should write it. And then I think we just went back and forth, and finally we said, why don't we pitch it as like, we both write the song.
Uh-huh.
And they were excited about that. They came back and they said, yes, we want you both to write the song. And we wrote the song. I was living in Mexico at the time, so I would send Kid tracks and he would send tracks back.
Uh-huh.
And when we submitted it, they liked it and they said, we would like you guys to be on the show,
Wow.
to come and be the house band at the
Uh-huh.
resort. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay, that sounds great. I'm living in Mexico and you're going to fly me to Puerto Rico to pretend to be on a Mexican resort. Okay,
Right.
yes.
It
So
was being shot in Puerto Rico?
it was being shot in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So we went out there, we shot the scene for the resort,
Mhm.
and Kid came back and I caught COVID and had to stay an extra 10 days
Oh,
in quarantine. But after that, we got an invitation from the Broad in Los Angeles to perform, to do the duet at the Broad. And at the time we had one song. So so I wrote to Kid and I'm like, hey, they want us to do an hour set. And
wow.
he's like, well, have it's like, can we do a little bit shorter? So, and they're like, 45 minutes. Okay. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
45 minutes. We can do that. I'll send you some ideas. I write a lot. So I would just send Kids ideas constantly. And he was like, yeah, yeah, let's do this one. Let's not do that one. Let's do this one. And so I went to Tucson for a month and we practiced for that show. And after practicing for that show, we're just like, let's just record this stuff and then
It's like
see
we've
if
got an
Larry,
album,
we've got an
right?
album. Let's see if
Yeah.
Larry wants to put it out. And he did. So that's how Juanita and Juan started.
So it just kind of organically happened,
Yeah. And the
which
name
is
is
so
from,
cool.
of course, from Babies on Fire. Juanita and Juan, very clever
Oh,
with
yes, yes.
maracas.
I never made that connection. That's so
Yes.
cool.
It
I
was
love that.
between Juanita and Juan and Conchita and Conchata, who are two characters from Get Smart,
Okay.
which so
And obviously I got it wrong. I said Wanda Juanita. It's Juanita and Juan.
Juanita and
What
Juan.
Juanita and Juan.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
That's why I always correct people. A lot of times people put the man's name first. And I'm like, no, this is based on the song. It's Juanita and Juan.
Yes, yes. Well, I don't think I can edit it out. I'll just allow myself to be stupid, and
Now you'll never forget. You'll just
that's
sing
true.
that little
That is
part.
that is true. That is true, and I love that connection too. I think that's great. So that's sort of just this ongoing thing.
It is. It's really fun, actually. It's really cool for me because I like just hanging back and playing keyboards and getting a little weird about you know, we play with tracks. So I can record like an oboe or a trumpet or a weird instrument and uh just what I get to play, and then I don't have to worry about playing an oboe or trumpet live. I just play, the basic stuff.
Is it a real oboe and a real trumpet, or is it like triggered from a
Oh, no,
keyboard? Or
no, no, it's
no?
totally like, I'm a total cheater. I play everything on keyboard. It's
Sure.
the only thing that I can do.
Well, because the technology exists now,
Yeah.
so why not? How many records have you put out
We
under that?
Juanita and Juan only put out one record,
Okay,
and, but we're gonna be writing another one, so
and that'll also come out in the red,
I don't know, we haven't
We-
asked him yet, but it'll come out.
presumably.
Yes, yes, it will. We're very
Okay.
confident.
And what about you in your own, like, solo music? Are you working on any kind of I know you've put out a few solo records.
Yeah. I put out 3 solo records. My last record, Sister Dynamite, came out during pandemic, so we didn't get to tour it, and then I moved to Mexico
Mhm.
for, I said, approximately 3 years, so we really
Right.
never gave that album its true, like, it's due tour. So I feel like, maybe these next few gigs are gonna be, like, just playing some of those songs from Sister Dynamite that we didn't have a chance to enjoy on the road. But I write all the time. I write pretty much every day. So I have a bunch of songs that aren't necessarily for one particular band. So like when I write specifically for Juanita and Juan, it's got a very different vibe than when I write for Alice Bag Band. And sometimes I just write for myself and there'll be like a ballad or something that I don't want to do live.
If you were to be playing live, would it be new stuff for a new record, or would it be like going back and doing the stuff from the last record?
Well, just between me and you, I am thinking that
And the rest of the world that's going to hear this. Yes, yes.
I'm thinking that I am probably going to phase out doing Alice Bag Band
Okay.
concerts because I am getting old. I'm not as energetic as I used to be.
Sure.
I would rather leave on a high note and
Uh-huh.
do like really good concerts. I'm going to be doing so to go back to what you actually asked. I'm going to be doing a lot of bag songs and a lot of different things in this next round of concerts
Uh-huh.
because I just want to like acknowledge my past and acknowledge the solo stuff that I've done and just try and take Alice Bag Band out on a high note. That is my goal.
Sure.
However, I don't want to say it's like my farewell tour because every time people say it's their farewell tour, you see them again playing next year. And I don't want to put that curse on myself. I'm just going to
Yeah,
say like, I'm kind of quietly phasing it out, you
but you
know.
make a lot more money when you do your reunion tour and then your fourth reunion. Like I think it was like 2 years ago I went and saw like the final Devo tour. And I'm like, oh, I've got to go. They've had like 3 reunion tours since then. I'm like, and make up your mind. It feels like you're just trying to squeeze me for more juice at this point. But I do understand. I mean, I understand the inclination to want to do that. But I guess my thought or my question with that is like, okay, so you formally or maybe informally sort of put a bow on it and put it on a shelf. But if you're writing stuff every day, there's going to be something new, right?
Well, I work with different people all the time.
Yeah.
Like I'm helping Teresa Covarrubias from The Brat. She wants to put out a new record,
Uh-huh.
and we've been writing together a little bit. It would be her album, not mine.
Uh-huh.
I worked on a song with Trap Girl, who's another band that I really enjoy working with, and so I like working with different people,
Yeah.
though it's not necessarily a big commitment. That's comfortable for me at my age.
You like the
I
collaboration.
I love the collaboration,
Yeah.
and if I ever write something, it would just be, I probably would just release it myself and like put it on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or something.
Yeah. Well, you can still put out records. I mean, I
I
guess the
could, I
question is,
could, yeah.
you call it Alice Bag? Do you have just a band with people that you write stuff and it's called something different? And I mean, the beauty is you get to do whatever the hell you want to do
I
and
do,
call
and I
and
and I
call it whatever
am
you want to.
I'm very fortunate because, we were talking about Larry Hardy,
Yeah.
and I think Larry is super supportive of me. Like he asked me, he's like, "Do you want to put on another record with
Uh-huh.
Al Spag Band?"
Uh-huh.
And he said he wants one. I don't think I'm going to be doing that, but it's nice to be wanted, and it's nice to know I have a home
Sure.
with that record company, and they're really super supportive. I'm very happy with them. But also, I feel like if I move or if I'm traveling and I'm in another country, I did play music with some women in Mexico City when I was there. We had a band called Lucia y los Alfileres, and we self-released a couple of tracks through DistroKid. And they also sang on the Spanish versions of two of the songs that I did with Sister Dynamite. So I have other friends who are musicians, and I like to collaborate with different people.
Right.
So there's those opportunities.
So let me ask you, if you go out on a high note with Alice Bag Band and play a bunch of the old stuff, do you think you would also have Kathleen Hanna and Allison Wolf come in and do some stuff with you, or does that just depend on availability?
You mean play a concert with me?
Yeah.
If they were around and they wanted to come on stage, I would be thrilled to have them. I know I see Allison all the
I thought that
time.
was super fun.
I don't see Kathleen as often. I think Kathleen has a child and she's got a lot on her plate. So I don't see her as often. But I do see Allison all the time. Allison is really busy with Bratmobile right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they would be, at my service to come up on stage. I have been really fortunate in the past that people happen to be in town. Like I had Terry Genderbender come up on stage with me. I have had, um, Kathleen, Lisa Flores, like people that I admire.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be great. I mean, not to even like mention like Shirley Manson coming in and doing a cameo on 77, like when we called her the night before. She's
Oh,
like,
really?
yes, yes, I'll be there. And she came
That's
in
cool.
with her own wardrobe and just like
It's such a fun video.
it is a really fun video. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that should be reenacted up on stage.
I wish
I
I
have,
could.
I have a feeling if you put something together and had enough advance notice, and I bet if you called everybody, it'd be like, I'm totally in. I'd like, seriously. It's just like, yeah, that was fun. We need to do that again.
A lot of times we do 77 with like local people, whoever's,
Uh-huh.
like if there are some women in the audience that happen to know the song
Oh,
and they'll
nice.
come up on
Just
stage.
come on
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking about this project in Mexico City, and you had singing in both English and Spanish.
The recordings that we made were in Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah. And I really enjoy like having the opportunity to just sing in Spanish.
Yeah. Well, this is my lazy attempt at making a segue into a story that I know you've told before, but I just think it's such a fun story, and that's sort of your professional beginnings at what
Oh, yeah.
age?
Yeah.
Age was it 8 or something?
I don't know how old
It
I
was young.
was. I
You
was
were
I was in elementary school for
yeah.
like I got to do it 2 years in a row. I'm guessing I was like, you're probably 8. Where I got to my music teacher recommended me to a company that was making educational cartoons,
Right.
and they were musical cartoons for bilingual kids or kids that were learning English. So and I voiced the character of I don't remember her name, I just remember
Wow.
that she was I was tall and she was, like, made to kind of be me, which
Uh-huh.
was really cool. And we sang about, like, friendship and, like, how to get along with with your friends and sharing and all kinds of, like, um, values that kids should have, but also it was bilingual, so it helped them learn, like, basic vocabulary in English.
Right. Was it English and Spanish in the same song, or were they two different versions of the same song? One in Spanish, one in English.
I don't remember. I don't remember if they like I remember being in the studio because that was such a new thing for me, like,
Sure.
these big headphones and fancy microphones and, like, feeling like, "Whoa, this is so cool."
It's
And,
pretty cool.
yeah.
And you got paid as a kid. I mean, I just
And I
love that.
remember the paycheck because I remember, like, I knew at the time my parents' rent was $60 a month. That's how long ago it was, the rent in Los Angeles, and, I was paid $100, and I was like,
Right.
"Whoa, I can pay the rent." And, I don't even know what happened to that money. But it definitely lit a little spark in me that made
Yeah.
me think like I could be a singer and I could pay my rent by, doing something I love to do. So,
Right. Which is something we should all have the opportunity to do, is
yeah,
make money doing something we love.
yeah.
Okay, I have another question, and it's just some little snippet I read something about, and that is Stay at Home Bomb.
Oh, yeah, stay-at-home bomb.
Is that a band, or is it a organization, or
It
like
was it was a band. It was a band
okay.
with Judy Kukuza, who was in Betty Blowtorch.
Mhm.
And for a while, we played with Sharon Needles, also from Betty Blowtorch, but we also played with a few different bass players because at a certain point, Sharon had to have open heart surgery, and so
Wow.
she took a break from it. So we played with a few different subs, Lisa Flores and myself. Although there were like at different times, there were different people that come in temporarily and fill a spot if it needed to be. But the four of us were a stay-at-home mom for most of the time.
And you played out?
We played out. Yeah, we played a few shows. We opened for Peaches.
Okay.
We played with The Gossip. We opened for Shonen Knife. Yeah, so we had it. We played a few shows, and our shtick was that we were like frustrated 50s housewives that like we always put a baby clothesline in back of us with
Okay.
and the my guitarist Lisa Flores, who's also a singer,
Yep.
would take a mixer, and she'd play slide guitar with a mix with a
Oh,
metal
wow.
for the and I don't we had a whole little shtick of like, we all wore aprons on stage.
It's a great name for a great concept.
And oftentimes I would bake cookies and hand them out to the audience because, as a
Nice.
mom, I had to make sure that everybody had something to eat,
For sure.
which is how my mom raised me. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
must have
Well,
food.
food is comfort, you know?
Yes.
I was talking to a friend the other night. We had a small gathering here, and we had the whole conversation about how every party you've ever been in any house, in any city in your life, doesn't matter how many people or how big the house is, like the party always ends up in the kitchen,
Hmm. Yeah.
And I have this whole theory about it because I think that the kitchen represents food and food is comfort, so people automatically just gravitate there. I don't know if there's another reason, but
That's because that's where the booze is.
is that why? Ah, had it wrong the whole time.
No. Well, I don't know. I'm thinking back. It's funny because I grew up with like a bunch of people who drank. Like my whole generation were like,
Uh-huh.
let's
Uh-huh.
go in the kitchen and mix drinks.
Right.
Let's see what's there. But now, like the younger generations aren't like that. They're very selective about
I
it.
understand that younger generations just don't drink so much
They
anymore.
don't, they don't. I have a feeling that has something to do with, like, the fact that there are so many cameras that can capture them, you know, falling and showing their asses, whereas, like, there
Could
were
be.
none when we were around, so we could fall and show our asses as much as we liked.
Well, they'll probably live longer because 'cause they'll be healthier as a result. Or who knows? Maybe edibles and THC is sort of taking the place of alcohol and liver damage.
I don't know. My aunt, who I went the main reason I moved to Mexico was for my aunt who was 98 years old.
Oh, wow.
And when like I have pictures of her when she was 99 years old doing tequila shots, and I'm like,
Nice.
damn, she smoked and drank her whole life,
Right.
and
Is she
she
still
was
with us?
no, she passed. She
Okay.
caught COVID,
Oh, shit.
and that did her in. But it wasn't the it wasn't the drinking or smoking or partying.
Did she make it to 100?
She did not. We were planning her 100th birthday. She was, like, 1 month shy.
But had she not gotten COVID, she
Yeah,
probably would have made it.
yeah, yeah. COVID just kicked her ass.
Yeah, it kicked a lot of people out. It
Yeah.
actually messed with my life. I've actually been living with long COVID for several years now, and it's very hard for me to work a full-time job as a result. Actually, I can't. I crash regularly for several hours at a time.
Oh, man, I'm so
So
sorry.
yeah, it sucks, but it is what it is.
I was scared when I came back from Puerto Rico after my first bout of COVID. I think wait, did I catch I think I caught it twice. But
Yeah.
the first bout of COVID is very, very memorable because I was, stuck in a hotel in a foreign country, or not a foreign country, but, in a foreign place anyway,
Uh-huh.
with no one I knew to assist except the hotel staff. But when I came back, I felt like my brain was just not working as
Uh-huh.
quickly as it had. And I remembered like I had scheduled an interview with someone and I just could not find the words to complete my sentences. And I was so embarrassed because I can like, this is not like me. I can usually express my thoughts, but I couldn't. Like, even like, what's your name? And it's like, um, my name is like, eventually I would say it, but it was like my brain was just it took a long time to come back.
Yeah, it has some real intense neurological impacts for some
Yeah.
people. Okay, well, let's see. We're getting towards the end of our our time here,
Okay.
which is sad. Um, but
Aw.
I always like to end with a last question, and I'm going to leave you with a big open question. As a Chicana woman, punk rock woman, with the history you have, what things you would have to say with young people, young women, Chicanos, about creativity and staying true to their heart and their self, and sort of pursuing the things they want to do. And I'm going to throw a little wrench in there, even more so, how you be true to all these things in the current state of politics that we're living with in America.
Well, I think it's most important to do it in the current state that we're living in right now, because we need to find community, and music is a great way to find community, and it's a great way to share ideas with other people. And I think a lot of times, especially young artists, and even if you're not an artist, whatever you do, we wait until we think this is good enough. And I just want to remind people that perfectionism is a killer. It's like it will stop you from doing what you're really meant to do, which is connect with people. And sometimes the very fact that you are imperfect is what connects with them. So I would say, wherever you are in your journey and your trajectory as an artist, whether you feel like I've written the best song, or I've painted the best painting, or I've danced the perfect dance, whatever it is, your form of expression, or written a story, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to share it, because someone is going to connect with you at that point where you are right now. In that point where you are imperfect, they'll connect with it. And that sense of community is going to be beneficial, not just for them to see you doing it, because it'll inspire them to do it, but for you, because you'll have an ally, you'll have someone that you'll know, like, oh, this made an impact on somebody beside myself. And that's really important right now, to feel that you are not alone.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Creative Asylum. A quick favor before you go. If you liked this conversation, please be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday at 10. You can find us on Instagram and on YouTube at Creative Asylum CA. That's Creative Asylum and the letters CA. Our website is thecapod.com. And our Facebook is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. Until next week, when we'll have a new conversation with another creative disruptor, stay creative in life and at work.